Okay, I'm Mike Scheid, and I'm 44 years old, and I'm at Lake Malone, day after Thanksgiving, November 28th, 2008, sitting here with my father, and you are?
The Gordy Shide.
And how old are you, Gordon?
I'm 71, going to be 72, coming up the 19th of December.
All right, very good. Dad just interviewed Mom, and we kind of started out talking about old times. And I wonder if you can take us back to maybe your earliest memory. Remember?
Wow. My earliest memories on Academy Avenue
And that's in
Cincinnati.
and it's in downtown Cincinnati.
It's in the suburb. On Academy Avenue was just my mother from a big family had sisters and brothers that lived on the street, and we lived there. And I must have been 5 or 6. I remember having little machines out in the yard, out in the front playing, and these girls came up and said to me, "Gordy, how are you?" And then everything. And they say, "Where's Bob at?" And they were interested more than my brother Bob than me. You know?
And so
That's my first memory.
So you were a little kid playing in the front yard with your toys.
And I just remember that. Remember that I had a dog that my mother took. We moved it out a little farther into suburbia, and I had a little dog named Blackie, and Blackie went on Mother's new rug, and she just had to get rid of Blackie, and that really affected me. I remember sitting on the steps crying.
How old were you, Dad?
I was maybe 6 and a half, 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this was not on Academy?
This was out on Cleves Warsaw Pike.
Okay, and that was further out?
Further out, and you move farther out, I guess, as affluence as you became more into whatever.
Yeah.
And we lived across from a dairy, and I remember the dairy real well as a little boy with the guinea hens running all over and loving it, fishing.
So this was kind of pretty much out in the country at that
It
point?
was not really in the country. We were kind of halfway
Okay.
in a suburb. Right?
Okay, but still some rural.
But a nice area, Cincinnati. Yeah. I had an aunt on both sides of me, my mother's family with her family.
Oh, I see. So when you moved, you were close to your mom's side of the
Yeah.
family, the Ackerman side, right?
The Ackerman side. In fact, we lived, Aunt Eleanor lived 2 doors up, and Aunt Virginia lived right next door.
Okay, so Aunt Eleanor and Aunt Virginia are grandma's sisters.
Right.
Yeah,
One's
okay.
older, one's younger.
Okay. And Eleanor and Virginia, what were their last names?
Ackerman.
There.
And Schutte was the married name in Mecklenburg.
Yes.
Aunt Eleanor married Joe Schutte. That's a Schutte
Aunt
family.
Eleanor Schutte.
And then there's Aunt Virginia married Ray Mecklenburg.
Mecklenburg. Okay, so your mom and dad moved out to Cleves Warsaw Pike. You were little. You had 3 older siblings, right?
Right.
You're the youngest.
Youngest of the clan, and nothing but good memories. It was just always family, and family reunions once a month, and,
Yeah.
and lots of kids to play with, lots of good friends.
So you had, did you have cousins
I had
around
lots
there
of
that
cousins,
you ran
yeah.
around with?
Yep, Jimmy Kettman was my best friend. He lived in Shelbyville, Kentucky. His father was a horse trainer, Ray Kettman, and Jimmy and I became very close.
Oh,
I'm sorry to say,
even though he was so far
yeah.
away. Yeah.
Very close, but I would like to connect with him again
Yeah.
before he or I passed away.
Still living
In California.
in California.
Yeah.
Okay. Dad, tell me about the house out in Cleves Warsaw. What was the house like?
Well, goodness, it was just, we had a 4-bedroom home, big porch, front porch. Everybody sat on their porch at nighttime. And
Were the houses close together?
they were just pretty close together,
Yeah.
as the norm was in those days.
Right.
And we had just a nice home, and we had a big place where we had breakfast in the back, like a breakfast nook. And it was always a fun thing, an evening meal, where everybody shared their ups and downs of that day.
Yeah. And you lived in that house until you were how old?
I lived there till I was about 13,
Okay.
and then we moved, which I was happy to, and probably influenced their thinking, out to the country,
Okay.
farther out anyway, on Bridgetown Road,
Okay.
to a bigger home and 5 acres.
Yeah. I think I remember
Yeah.
driving by that
Yeah,
house.
big
now.
rustic fence around
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
That was a fun time.
Take me back a little bit further. I'm jumping around on you here about growing up, and if you would tell me about your brother and sisters. and some of your early memories there of, let's see, Uncle Bob was next, your closest,
Yeah, right.
and then Aunt Betty, and then next, and then the oldest was Aunt Martha,
Aunt
right?
Martha, yeah.
Mhm.
Aunt Martha married Joe Murphy, who was a naval pilot, and
How,
they had 10 children ultimately, you know.
okay.
But,
And Aunt Martha, when she married, how old were you, Dad?
when she married, I would have been Martha's about 12 years. I was maybe 9 years old, you know, 8 or 9 years old. I remember
Okay.
the wedding very well, dancing around like the kids do today on the floor.
Yeah. So you were still on Cleves Warsaw Pike, right?
Yeah, right. Was she?
When she got married.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. And then Aunt Betty she never married, and Betty was 10 years older than I was, and
Okay.
I'm sorry to say we were always in conflict with each other.
You
when I was
guys
a
were
kid,
always
yeah.
what, teasing each other.
Yeah, I got grounded in the summer. Had to stay in the yard for weeks at a time. You know.
And any particular prank
Oh.
that you can remember about
Anyway,
pulling Aunt Betty?
Aunt Betty, she got so upset with because I love practical jokes. I was always pulling something on her, you know. But the biggest one was my brother Bob, and I've told this story. I believed in Saint Nick, and Saint Nick in our tradition was a big thing. You put your stockings up, and of course you got oranges and maybe apples, whatever, nuts. And I got up and ran out there, and there was coal in my stocking, and that meant
That's awful.
that you were a bad boy, and Santa Claus wasn't coming. And that's when my mother told me there was no Santa Claus. And my brother, that's the only thing he ever did that really upset me, because he was a great example for a brother. Other than that. Still is.
Did you ever find a chance to get even with him or
Well,
play
I
a
don't
prank
know.
on him?
I don't know.
So that's how you found out about Santa Claus, huh?
That was always such a fun thing. But and then the other time, I remember when my grandfather had a bakery, and I must have been 6 or 7 years old, maybe 5 or 6.
Now, Dad, which grandfather was
This was Grandpa Chris. This was
and this is your dad's
Dad, who had a bakery.
Okay, Grandpa Chris.
Grandpa Chris, and he had a bakery at Prout's Corner, and
At what corner?
Prout's Corner.
Proud.
Yeah, Prout's.
Proud's corner.
And it's over St. Lawrence Church. I'm not too sure where it's Prout's, but anyway.
And what road is that?
This is on West 8th Street.
West 8th.
I
Okay.
think so, yeah.
Kind
So-
of. Is that Price Hill area?
That was all Price Hill.
Price Hill. Okay.
Anyway, and he had the bakery across from St. Lawrence Church, and they had a baker, of course. His name was Haas. I remember being Haas, and he was really a big guy to me in those days. And but he dressed up as Santa Claus at Christmas time and went to his friend's house, and of course, Grandpa got him to come to see me. And I've been telling my mother prior to his visit that all my friends are saying there's no Santa Claus, and you tell me every year he's going to be here, and I don't believe until I can see him. And that night, lo and behold, in comes Haas dressed as a Santa Claus, a big, oh my God, he says to me, "Have you been a good boy?" And I said, "Yes," and I wet my pants. I had to run to the bathroom, and I remember, I never forgot, because I wasn't a good boy, but I lied.
And it made you wet your pants. Oh my gosh.
Those are good memories.
How old do you think you were?
Oh, I was preschool. I wasn't even in kindergarten, I guess, yet, you know?
Oh, that's cute.
Anyway,
Let's see, Dad. So that was Grandpa Chris.
Grandpa Chris,
And what was your grandma's name?
Grandma, what you mean, Grandpa's?
Grandpa Chris's
Minnie.
Minnie.
Philomena was her name. We call
Philomena.
her Grandma Minnie. Very religious woman. Stellar. Pillars in the church.
Yeah.
They went to mass. They said the rosary on their knees every day, and I would say she had a great influence on me as far as my faith. I never forget when I stay overnight. I'd sleep with Grandpa, and she'd come through the room when you're sound asleep and bless everybody with holy water. And she'd come through every room and have holy water all over. And I'd wake up and look around.
So you'd be sleeping and the holy water might wake you up.
And she had great big religious pictures. And they were just so good people. Oh,
Yeah.
her name was Bender, was her maiden name.
Oh, she was a bender.
Another
Okay.
German. You know?
Okay.
Right.
And so my great grandma and great grandpa Chris and Minnie.
Right.
Where did they live relative to where you were living, or relative to where they had their bakery?
Well, they lived maybe halfway the bakery. They lived halfway between the bakery and where we lived down in Price Hills.
Okay, gotcha.
Anyway, it was just maybe a 20-minute ride by car.
Okay, so pretty good distance.
Yeah, 15 or 20 minutes each way.
Okay. Could Grandpa Chris actually walk to work?
No, he had his little Hudson.
Mm-hmm.
And he took his Hudson. He always shined it every day.
He did.
Kept it in the garage.
Keep it in the garage. Keep
Yeah,
it looking
just
good.
Just a good man. Worked hard.
Now, Grandpa Chris, do you remember anything about him telling about your great grandparents?
No, in fact, I'm sorry to say.
Besides,
I'm sorry to say that I wished I had talked to him more
Yeah.
about that. And when I was that age, it wasn't the norm to ask your grandparents. Children should be seen and not heard was always the
Sure.
norm.
And of course, you were so far the youngest of your family,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So it would have been more difficult.
It was, but I
as
just
they got older. And
I
you were
remember
so
seeing
young.
their pictures as they went up second floor. You went to the landing and up to
Mhm.
the second level, and they had pictures of there all these old men with black beards, and I didn't know who was who, But
Yeah.
I knew I had a grandfather, a great grandfather in there somewhere.
Sticking with Grandpa Chris and Grandma Minnie, do you know? Did they did not immigrate, correct?
No, they were the second generation. I think.
Okay. Do you think their parents actually immigrated to,
Well-
or had the Shides been in the States for a while?
They had been, right.
Okay.
And I know they were second generation. Grandpa's father was a farmer, and then Grandma's father was a farmer, and they went from the country into the city, and
Yeah.
never heard too much about that. But anyway, another person, talking about the Shides, my godmother, Kitty Clark, was from Germany, and she was just a wonder. She was my godmother, and she was always there, and her husband died. He was a policeman, got married, I think about a year after they were married, he got a head injury, and they took her in. They took Kitty in, and she had her own room in the back of the house,
So
and she helped with all the chores, and I remember she was always writing in German back to Germany.
I see.
But here's an example. I wish I would have asked her 1,000 questions.
And she was your
my godmother.
godmother. Okay.
Yeah.
And Kitty, what's her last name?
Kitty Clark.
Kitty Clark.
I don't know what her maiden name was, but she was German. I wish that there's a question I would have liked to ask. And my godfather was Grandpa or Albert, Grandpa's brother, Uncle Albert.
Okay.
And they got pictures of them. You guys got them somewhere.
So your grandfather, Grandpa Chris's brother Albert,
Was my godfather.
was your godfather.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. This Kitty, do you have any pictures of your godmother?
We do, and I can ascertain details.
Okay.
But the trouble is, you look at them, and they're all in their 80s and stuff.
Yeah.
And you really wonder, But she was a good woman.
Oh, that's-
I always said the rosary on their knees. I never hardwood floors. Talking about religious and where my faith started to sprout right there.
right there with
Yeah.
them, right?
Just the goodness they had. And I would come after school at when I was at St. X High School, and I'd come up and if I missed my bus to go home, Trailways bus to go out to the country, my dad would pick me up after work. I remember coming up the steps, and there was always a man or two sitting there. Grandma fixed sandwiches for him.
So could you walk to your grandparents from St. X High School?
No, I had to take the bus up to Price Hill from downtown. I
Okay.
was right downtown in
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
St. X High School was downtown.
And I had to take a bus up to Price Hill.
Up to Price Hill.
And then Dad would pick me up after work
And your dad worked
at
at
Kroger's.
Kroger.
Yeah, for
in-
many years.
In the home office, I guess.
Home office as a purchasing agent. Right.
Okay.
He was a store manager before that, right?
Okay, gotcha.
Anyway, so just Grandma was always those men. She fed them sandwiches. They came there, and every other time I would visit her, she'd have somebody feeding somebody.
Just sort of men, friends, or
Yeah, they got the work on around,
or
like almost
men
like homeless around
down on
work.
their luck
Yeah,
people.
right,
Yeah,
right.
Okay, she would make sure they had sandwiches.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. I don't remember hearing
Yeah,
that.
but she never talked much about it. She just was a doer,
Where did you all go to church? What was your parish
Well,
growing up?
I remember the only parish to start with was St. Teresa's, where I was went the first grade up through the seventh grade.
Where was that located?
St. Teresa's was located right maybe a block from where we lived in Price Hill.
In Price Hill.
St.
Okay.
Teresa of Avon.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And it
What,
became a son.
what good memories do you have
Oh.
there at St. Teresa?
Just, we had the charity nuns and they were wonderful. I never had any trouble. I always got along with the nuns because maybe I just was a good guy. But anyway, I remember I was a server and everything was in Latin. We had to learn all your prayers in Latin. And they have a team of 3 that were servers. You had two at the altar and one have a paten. And when you gave communion out, you went down you had to put this paten underneath everybody's chin.
Which was the little gold plate,
Right.
On a stick.
On a stick.
Yeah.
And I went down and we took turns, and I never forgot. 6 o'clock mass was a mass. We had to take turns, and we didn't like 6 o'clock mass, especially in the winter time.
Sure, for obvious
You had to ride a bike up in the dark. I remember walking in, and Dave and Don, they were like a cats and yammers.
Dave and Don Oberding?
Oberding.
Okay.
Dave and Don Oberding were there, and they said, "Have you had breakfast, Gordy?" I said, "No." So they're going to hand me a whole thing of hosts, and of course you raise this as a consecrated bread, and they said, "Oh, come on, have some. We get some wine too." I thought lightning would come out of the sky. But,
Oh, jeez.
but these guys became good friends, and I still get together with Don. Davis passed away, but I get together with a group from kindergarten through college, and
Yeah.
Don is one of them. And but St. Teresa's just a good. Played sports there, and
Yeah.
and we were
Played football a
played
little
football
bit?
and a little baseball, but primarily football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I remember you telling me
Yeah.
about that.
So we.
And then, let's see, Dad, then you went on to high school, and that was
St. X High School downtown, the Jesuits, right? And then on to Xavier University.
Xavier. What do you remember about St. X High School, or good memories, thoughts about your high school
Oh,
days?
jeez. Just,
And who were some of your friends that you
Well-
ran around with? Anybody that would ride the bus in from the country with you?
that was, those people were all over Indiana. They came from Indiana, downtown Cincinnati to go to school.
Like
But
Lawrenceburg?
good memories, good friends, kind of nobody really that strong. Primarily St. Teresa, got good friends there, but at St. X High School, we had, the first memory was that when you went into the restrooms, a priest, I was just a freshman, grabbed me by the arm, he says, "Crawl underneath there." They would lit a cigarette up and put it in the little holder where the toilet paper was, and they'd crawl out, and they'd have a priest or a mother, and he'd make me go into there and take that cigarette and put it out. It was just the pranks that went on, And we had, in a chemistry class, I'll never forget, Don Schmidt, he was a good basketball player. He always went to sleep, and we were in chemistry class, which had tiered, he said,
Sure.
And he was up there sound asleep with his hand like he was reading. We tied these big shades that got pulled down. We tied it back on the back of his pants, and when the bell rang, he stood up and pulled that shade out. Oh, just good things. And of course,
Who was the principal of St. X at that time? Remember that?
we had Father Finn, and then there's Brannigan, and I guess Father Bell, who's now Principal, Mr. Bell. He was probably you're talking about favorite teachers. He was one of my favorite teachers. And then a good story which relates. I'm thinking of this is that there was a Mr. Savage who became a priest and became head of the English department at Xavier, and he was just a tough guy. I mean, if anybody messed around, he just put him up against society. I mean, he just made made an example of him, and everybody. I remember I had him for a speech, and I almost was scared to get up there and give a speech, but it worked out all right. But when he died, he had a heart attack. Died early in life, and I come to find out that his family all had heart disease, heart problems. That I had our family pray for Father Savage, and lo and behold, one night I have a dream, and he says to me, "I'm here. Don't pray for me." And I sat up in bed and got my wife, Joe. I said, "Joey, we're not praying for Father Savage, anymore." But it was just like he was right there.
How did that make you feel?
Oh my God! I felt like maybe my prayers were answered.
That's an amazing story.
Anyway, Father Savage. Anyway, we'll find out, meet him in the hereafter.
Exactly.
Anyway, good memories. Just you could go on forever about little things that you did. Good people, and it was a great time in my life, all the way along the road.
Oh, that's good. This was all in Cincinnati, and of course you guys eventually moved to Louisville. But Real quick, just staying with Cincinnati for a minute, we talked about Grandma Minnie and Grandpa Chris on the Scheid side.
Right.
I wonder if you could tell me a little bit more
About the Ackermans?
about your grandparents on the Ackerman side.
Well,
Grandma Scheid was Nellie
Nellie
Ackerman.
Ackerman, right. She was the second oldest, and
Your
Eleanor
mom.
was the oldest, and she was the second oldest of 10.
Of 10 kids.
10 kids, right.
Okay.
Grandma Nellie, her mother.
Any chance you could name all the brothers sisters or?
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
no, I could. I mean, you got Virginia, passed away, and you got Jack, and you got Bud Ackerman, you got Howard Ackerman, you got Aunt Susie, and you got Virginia, and whatever.
Well, a lot of them.
Oh my God!
So
yeah. And they all
these
had,
people were around in your
yes, and they
growing
were all
up,
part
right?
of my life.
Yeah.
You know, and they had children, and we all
Yeah.
once a month a family reunion,
Mhm.
and you had everybody took turns, and
I see.
it's everybody
That's
catching
great.
up,
And I guess first communions, confirmations, things like that. must have
marriages,
been-
right?
Yeah, a lot of the celebrations
Yeah.
going on.
And Jeannie Ackerman, she was my age. In fact, I was supposed to be named Eugene, and my Alma was pregnant with my cousin Jeannie, and whoever had the baby first, Aunt Virginia, pardon me, and Alma or Mom was going to be named Eugene, and I was born. I guess she was born. Jeannie was born. I think about the 10th of December. I was born on the 19th, so I would have been a Eugene. They ended up being a Gordon, who was named after Gordon Maget, who gave my dad his first break in becoming a buyer at Kroger's.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I was named Gordon after Gordon Maget.
Boucher. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, the
So
Ackerman
you're-
family never knew Grandpa and Grandma Ackerman because they had passed away before I was born.
I see. Okay.
But Grandpa Ackerman started a millinery business, and
what's millinery?
it made hats.
Made hats. Okay.
Hats in downtown Cincinnati. Then he finally, that business started going south on him, so he got out and opened up the first theater in Price Hill. It was talkless. I mean, they didn't. Aunt Virginia had to play the organ for the movies, and but this was the Glenway Theater, and of course I can remember. Then they went to the Sunset Theater they built. Then they went to the Covedale Theater.
So they had. Say that again, Dave.
They had the Glenway Theater,
Glenway,
and then Sunset, and then the Covedale.
Covedale Theater, and do they run those all at the same time?
Well, I think when they finally opened up the Covedale, they closed Glenway because it got too far. I mean, it was just too much as far as
Sure.
losing business. It's in the lower end of Price Hill, but. Anyway, and then again, the best part about the theaters was I got in free.
Sure.
I take my buddies with me, walk in and go, take them
Just
right
a
out.
little high sign.
That was pretty cool.
And you went.
Yeah. Anyway, it was just good times.
Oh, that's-
The Ackermans were another strong Catholic family with and good morals and just good examples for you to grow up with.
Yeah.
You know, they were all ambitious and succeeded. You know.
Yeah, it sounds like they're kind of into their businesses, right?
Right.
Where
They
they're
all
just-
had different businesses, some real estate, some in whatever, but good memories. All of them. I could go on. Take forever.
I was just trying to take you through a progression here after high school. What were you thinking about when you were graduating from high school? Was there any decision at all, or you just knew you were going to
Well,
college?
most all my friends, it was kind of like whatever's everybody else doing. You didn't have any aspirations what you're going to be. I actually remember Grandma Philomena and my godmother Kitty. They wanted me to be a priest,
Okay.
and all
In
of
high school?
And well, when I was little.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going back. I forgot to tell you a good
Yeah.
memory, and I was the youngest and the last one really in the family. We'll hope Gordy will be a priest.
the
And-
final hope.
and instead of a nightlight, they put a little light on altar in my room. And my buddies would give me the raspberry saying, "Hey, Gordy, what are you doing here?" You know? I said, "Mom does that." So anyway, I thought it was cute that I had instead of a nightlight, a
You had
little
an
altar
altar.
that lit up at night, you know?
Oh, that's funny. So, but then eventually you thought, I'm going to just go on to college.
My friends all went. There was maybe half a dozen of us that graduated from St. A's High School that went on to Xavier University.
Did most kids go to college?
Most kids that I ran around with did.
Okay.
But then again, I had some friends that didn't, you know, that were got in. They were more mechanically inclined.
Yeah, went right to work or
Yeah,
whatever.
they did as
Did-
plumbers and whatever.
Did your mom and dad talk to you about college and just say, we'd really like to see you do this?
My
and
mother,
education's a
yeah,
good
my
thing?
mother really, and my Aunt Alma really insisted. I don't know, she had an influence on me going to St. X because her son Don had gone. He was the only one in the
To-
family to go to Xavier University.
XU, okay.
XU, high school and to college.
Mhm.
And I really didn't want to go to St. X High School because all my friends at that time, most of them in the country, were going to Elder High School.
To Elder,
And
okay.
the other ones are going to St. X. But primarily, I didn't want to go to St. X because most of my key friends were going to Elder,
I see.
even though we were all going to college.
Yeah. Did you hold on to your elder friends?
Well, I
When
did.
you went to X?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
sure did. Yeah, and that's the Oberdings. They
Okay.
went there, for example. But Xavier, okay, then college was just a big thing. All good friends. Graduated in '59 from Xavier University. Went
Okay.
55 from high school.
Yep.
59 from Xavier University, and then went on to go to work. And I went to the service. We had to go in for 6 months in order to avoid being drafted. We decided to go
What-
through the Guard.
What war was that?
There was no war. It was just, I'm sorry, it's between the Korean and the next conflict, which is Vietnam.
Okay, so you were kind of in between
In
those
between,
two.
yeah.
All right, but nonetheless, you did ROTC while you were in college.
Yes, it was the mandatory. You take 2 years of ROTC. That's funny. I decided not to finish 4 years of ROTC, where some of my friends did. And became a regular Army. Yeah.
Okay. And let's see, tell me about the Army now, Dad. How does you did 2 years, but then did that help pay for college? Did you get any tuition reimbursement?
Well,
for
no,
that,
I
or-
already finished college.
You did, I'm sorry, you did your ROTC
And
after college.
no, you have to. It was
I'm sorry.
a grant of the college. You had to take 2 years of ROTC,
Mhm.
and they really had a facility for it. It was a norm that the Jesuits built up with the Army.
Okay.
So we had mandatory. You had to take 2 years of it.
Everybody.
And then if you wanted to go on, you can so choose, and if you want to
Okay,
accept
I
it.
thought, and did that kind of push you further on down the list with the future draft because of taking that 2 years?
No, not really. No, it was. I don't think there made any difference. But then afterwards, in order to, we went in for. You could go 6 months, and then come back and go to the Guard meetings at night. You had summer camp, and you had meetings once a week.
Is
And
this during college?
This
or-
is after college.
Okay.
This
Okay.
is after college. Right.
Okay. So you were working at the time.
I was working. I went to work as an assistant buyer at Pogue's department store. Yeah.
Okay.
As a temporary, I thought I wasn't going to stay. I didn't. Yeah.
Okay, so you're working at Pogues, but you still have an obligation to
I
the
do,
ROTC at that time?
Right now, ROTC just didn't make any difference after that. Once you got graduated, you could either go regular Army or not. The only thing that helped me out is when I finally decided to go into service.
Yes.
Because of my background, it helped me really to get into more leadership programs.
And I hate to belabor this, but when did you decide to go into service?
I would say I was out of college when I was 22.
Mhm.
I think that was maybe the next year,
Okay.
23. I'd gone to work for 6 months, and then I had to leave to go to 6 months in the service,
Okay, gotcha.
which everybody did. All the guys my age,
That-
apart
okay.
unless you got,
It
exempted.
was- So pretty much everybody was expected to do
They did.
6 months in the service.
And then come back and go once a week, and then 2 weeks summer camp.
And that was National Guard?
National Guard.
National Guard, okay. And was it during this summer camp that you found out about your diabetes?
Yes, we were going to Grayling, Michigan for 2 weeks summer camp, and on the way I had all the symptoms of being a diabetic. And I remember coming back, and at that time I was writing letters to my future wife,
Yeah.
or who she worked with. I worked with at Pogues, but anyway, I came back and I went to the doctor. So I said, Dr. Foldis, I think I got the symptoms of being a diabetic. He said, well, you were here just before you went to service, and all the tests were normal. He said, let me take a urine test, and that's when they found out I was a diabetic.
I see. And how old were you, Dad?
I was 25.
25. And this was right at the time when you and Mom were getting serious?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay, gotcha.
I remember her visiting me at the hospital. I'll never forget. She came up there.
You were in the hospital?
Hospital, and they checking me out for everything, diabetes, to get it regulated. And they take urine samples, and one urine sample, Mom and Dad came in, and they'd never met her. Of course, Dad looked at her like, no, she's a good-looking chick. You know? I could see in his eyes, so she knocks over the bottle of urine. She'll never forget that.
Had you all been on your first date at that point?
No, we hadn't
She
really.
visited you in the hospital.
She visited me in the hospital, and that's when I got up the courage to call her.
You guys had written to each other, obviously,
Yeah,
and knew
yeah,
that
she
you.